Terrible. You see, I can remember here back in the day. I believe I was here in 1925. You see, still desert, bloody awful, hotter than it is now. Must have been 200 degrees outside. Horrible. Still wore wool uniforms. Oh, bloody awful, itchy as hell, mind you. I was part of the 11th Dragoons by this point. Took a demotion, you see. Bloody awful, Lawson's fault yet again. Had to stand up for the poor bastard. What happened? You piss yourself in front of the Queen. I said, no, it's all right. He's a coward, but he's my assistant. She said, too bad. You're going to the 11th Dragoons now. Horrible, bloody awful. So here we were in this horrible land here, much like, much like hell, really. Fighting the Arabs. Now, this was at the point where they hadn't quite figured out yet that the English are just naturally superior, you see. So they tried to engage us with tanks and whatnot, but they weren't really tanks. They were more of a mud box, had wheels on it. They weren't even wheels. I don't believe the Arabs had figured out what a wheel was. It was more like a square, you see. What did I say? Well, anyway, so it was a whole armada of these. Of course, I was by myself, Lawson, riding bitch, as he was called. A horse, you see. All I had was my saber. Bloody awful, you see. I rode right through the middle of them. You see, good English steel went right through the mud and cut the heads off the enemy, you see. After the first 40, 50,000 were dead by this point, the others realized it was futile because I was an Englishman, superior to their Arab means, so they turned tail and ran away. This was the start of the IED, you see. Yes, they hadn't quite discovered gunpowder yet either, but what it would be was a young Arab in a hole, and as you would travel by, he'd jump out and go, woo! And the horse would scare and you'd be backed off. That was his first IED that the Arabs had come up with, mind you. It wasn't until at least the 1990s that they discovered gunpowder. Bloody awful. Right, an American, mind you, gave them this technology. You see, they hadn't even discovered fire yet. A good Englishman invented fire, of course. It was in England. I was there. It was 1290. Yes, and we discovered fire. Sitting around, much like yourselves, you see, around this stone hall. And I looked at Lawson. Of course, he was there as well. You see, English superiority. Once again, we look rather young, but that's because we're purebred English. So, there we were, and I had a newspaper. Are you familiar with these? Of course not. You're peasant serfdom. You wouldn't know how to read and write. But anyway, there I was reading it, and I said, I don't like this bloody paper anymore. So I threw it in this magical hole. Lo and behold, I snapped my fingers. The friction, you see, created a spark and started the fire. That's how I invented fire, mind you. Sold the rights to His Majesty. And fire now officially belongs to Great Britain. You see, that's why we're called Great Britain. We are the greatest, of course. Hello there, old chap. How do you do? Remind me of a young man during my battles in World War II. Once again on a horse, woolen uniform, mind you, in Africa. Bloody hot again. I don't know what it is, but I've had a lot to do with Africa. Horrible, bloody awful situation. There we were, the cherries were coming down on us. Tanks and everything. This time, you see, the Germans had discovered steel by this point. Bloody awful. And there they were. They had horses out in front of these steel boxes. They called them tanks. This bloody man with a funny mustache named Hitler, you see, come up with this blitzkrieg idea. Now, of course, he didn't take into consideration English superiority in tactics, you see. You see, there it was, me again, on my horse with saber. I'd only gone down to my saber by this point, still using muskets, mind you. So, there Lawson was, riding bitch yet again. He'd, of course, wrecked his horse, mind you. Been bucked off or something. Bloody idiot. Anyway, so I rode down the middle of this. Now, once again, the superiority of English steel, I was able to cut through the tank and kill The bloody Jerry's inside. They all turned tail and ran away. Why? I captured one of them though, and I said, deliver to me this Erwin Rommel fellow. And sure enough, out of sheer fear of my English superiority, he did in fact deliver me Erwin Rommel. I had to teach him a thing or two about modern education and whatnot, and for that, he decided he would leave Africa and never come back, you see. And I said, you will never hurt another English soul. And he said, fine, but what about Americans? And I said, this is fine, they're only part English, except for him, he's Mexican. So, of course, you see, that's how I won Africa back, for the English. Everybody attributes such things to Lawrence of Arabia. I was a bloody coward. Lawson here could have kicked his butt several times. Some sort of match of fisticuffs, if you will. Too easy. This man, mere coward. He was merely a front for my secretive operations in the country at the time. Yes. This is when I discovered how you say, MI6. Yes, bet you didn't know that. I was the founder of MI6 and MI5, as well as 7 through 8. You see? I suppose it would be 7 through 9. Yeah. Yes, that's what it was, 7 through 9.